Yo, what's going on, Kicks Army? If you're watching this, that means you survived this terrible year. Congratulations. This last month was very crazy for me. I had to take a little bit time off from making videos because both of my parents did get COVID. Thankfully, they're both doing much better now and have since been cleared from it, so that is awesome news. And now that I am back into it, this is going to be a sneaker drawing of the Air Jordan 1 Off-White Chicago. And in the video, I will be talking about all the details regarding my next upcoming sneaker coloring book, which will be the Hypebeast Coloring Book. Don't forget that you can find this sneaker coloring stencil for free on my website, KicksArt.com. The link will be in the description. I've been uploading some heat lately, and especially over this next week, you're going to see a lot more interesting stencils added. So with all that being said, let's get it! Now, before we get into the main topic of the video, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Now, if you're not familiar with them, Skillshare is an online learning community that offers thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people alike. Classes that were made by creators for a number of disciplines, including illustration, graphic design, photography, design, creative writing, animation, fine art, music, film and video, marketing, productivity, freelance, web development, and more. The classes on Skillshare include a combination of both video lessons and a class project, and what's nice is that Skillshare has a ton of classes that reach within a wide variety of skill levels. It's really good for novices or beginners to be able to get your feet wet in a number of these creative endeavors, but it's also really good for masters or experienced creatives to dive deep into a very particular area. For those who are trying to level up their social media game, I highly recommend the Context is Key course created by Gary Vee. And for the first 1,000 people to use the link in my description, they will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium free. Afterwards, it's only $10 a month. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring today's video. Now, before we get into the main topic of today's video, I just wanted to say a quick thing to you, the viewer, and that is thank you. And I genuinely mean this from the bottom of my heart. Like, despite everything that this year brought, and trust me, it brought a lot. Like, we weren't even into February and this year had brought a lot. Remember that like Australia was on fire and we almost had World War III and then like some other crazy things, and then we heard about this thing going on in Wuhan. I don't even know, right? Like, this was a crazy year. And yet, despite all of that, I was able to leave my job to become a full-time artist and content creator this year. That is absolutely insane, and if you are watching this right now, there's a good chance that you had something to do with it. It's all your fault. No, but seriously, your support, regardless of how big or small it is, allowed me to be able to do what I'm currently doing now, which is fulfilling my dream of being a full-time artist. Literally, multiple times a day, I sit and think to myself, I cannot believe this is even happening. This is like impossible. This shouldn't be happening. And sure, yes, my hard work definitely had a lot to do with it, but your support is by far the missing piece that even made this possible. And I don't know what's gonna happen next year. Sure, I have a lot of aspirations. I made a business plan, but if this year taught us anything, that it doesn't really matter what happens because life is gonna do whatever life's gonna do. But regardless of what happens in 2021, I want you guys to know that you guys were the reason that I was able to at least say for 6 months I was a full-time artist, and I can die saying that. So yeah, thank you. But now let's pivot and look towards the future. So the first major order of business for 2021 is to release the Hypebeast Coloring Book that I've been working on for the past month and a half. The current goal is to get the entire design of the book done by a week, so let's say January 7th. And there's still a little bit of work that I have to do with that. I have to create another 8 stencils, plus I have to actually compile the entire book together, which I do have working templates from the previous book's release, so it's not going to be too difficult, but it takes time. And then from the time the book is actually completed, it takes me about 2 weeks to get copies in hand. So hopefully by mid-January, I'll have the pre-orders available on the website for the book. But now let's actually talk about the book itself, because there's a few interesting components to this I think you might find fascinating. So as I've mentioned, the name of the book is going to be the Hypebeast Coloring Book, and there's a few reasons as to why I even decided doing that book for my third book, and why I decided to go with the name. So the 2 books that I've already created this year are the Air Jordan Coloring Book and the Nike Coloring Book Volume 1. Now I have plans to release another 6 coloring books in 2021, not including this Hypebeast Coloring Book, but 6 additional books. And I was originally thinking of doing an Adidas coloring book for this third book, but I had a change of heart. I knew that for whatever this third book would ultimately be, I wanted it to have a number of different popular brands that a lot of people knew, as opposed to just sticking for one brand like I've been doing and like I likely will for a number of books to come. Now when it comes to book themes, the only ones that I've had in mind that would be okay to include multiple brands would be the high fashion, which would obviously include a lot of the premium type high fashion brands, as well as the sneakerhead coloring book. And I do have both both of those books on the list that we'll eventually make this year, but I did want to make a book that kind of combined both components, the high fashion component and the variety of brands in a single book component. And after a lot of thinking, the idea of making a Hypebeast coloring book just kind of came to me, and it made the most sense. Because I wanted to create a book that included a lot of those high fashion designer brand models, but also included some models from Nike and Jordan brand as well. And I felt like Hypebeast in and of itself was the perfect term that can kind of combine those two worlds. Now the term Hypebeast, right, as per Merriam-Webster dictionary, refers to a person who is devoted to acquiring fashionable items, especially clothing and shoes. My definition of a Hypebeast is someone that only purchases shoes or clothes that are relevant to the current state of the culture that relates to both streetwear and urban fashion. And this is typically used as a negative term in reference to somebody who has their priorities out of whack. For example, they will have no problem waiting in line to cop the newest pair of hyped up sneakers, but yet their car is put together via duct tape. And whereas sneakerheads are genuinely fans of the sneaker culture and they understand a lot of the history and what makes sneakers so interesting, Hypebeasts are only interested in the clout, right? They want attention, they want people to look at them, they want to get a lot of likes, but then the moment something else comes, they're gonna switch it off for something new. And the reason why I'm calling this the Hypebeast coloring book is because I specifically put sneakers inside of the book that would fit that perfect description of what a Hypebeast would want. A lot of the shoes in the book are premium, very hard to get, were very limited upon release, or super chunky. And some of these sneakers you're gonna find in some of my other books, either the books that I've released or the books that are yet to come. But when initially thinking about what shoes I wanted to include in a book, when I had all of these sneakers together, the only thing that came into mind that made sense was Hypebeast. So you don't have to be a Hypebeast to enjoy this coloring book, but those who are Hypebeasts will be looking to cop this the moment it drops. And now let's get into the sneakers included in the book, starting with the brands themselves. We have Adidas, Balenciaga, Gucci, Jordan, Louis Vuitton, Nike, and Off-White. And as you notice, Nike does take up about a third of this list. But ultimately it makes sense. I mean, they are the largest sneaker brand in the world, and then when we fit into the context of what Hypebeasts look for, there are a lot of Hypebeast related sneakers that fall under that Nike brand category. Now, I was trying to spread the love around a little bit. I did give Adidas and Jordan brands some models as well, and we have a few high fashion brands in here as well, but I did want to include a cap in the total number of sneakers included in the book. So for this particular book, and pretty much for all books going forward, the cap is going to be 48 sneakers. This just makes it easy, so that way my books are pretty much all around the same price. Now the Nike coloring book is actually 11 cents more expensive than the Jordan coloring book, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that obviously is a difference. If I try to keep all the books around the same number of pages, it just makes it easier for me. And then if you've seen any of my books, you understand the way that I work my spreads, and the spread is essentially 2 pages right next to each other. You'll know that I try to stick with 2 sneakers per spread. So for the Jordan coloring book, I included both the high and the low model of whatever that Jordan numbered sneaker was, and then for the Nike coloring book, I included 2 sneakers within that section. So if it was an Air Max section of the Nike coloring book, I had, let's say, the Air Max 90 and the Air Max 95 on the same spread. That way, if you're looking at 2 different sneakers in the same spread, there is some continuity between the two, and it's not just random sneakers that are all kind of compiled together. This also makes it easier to find sneakers in the table of contents. That meant that with every individual shoe that I selected to be included in the book, I wanted to make sure it had one other shoe that could pair well with it on the same spread. The only time that doesn't happen in this book or in the Nike coloring book was when I included the Air Mag. Just naturally the shape of the shoe is really weird, it's quite long and doesn't fit too well with other sneakers in the same page, so I just have 2 of the same shoe. And again, these are just some of the micro decisions I have to make when compiling this book together. I want to make sure it's the best possible experience you can have as an end user. Now let's go into the actual sneaker list. So for the Adidas sneakers, we have the Pharrell NMD OG, the Pharrell NMD Chanel version, the Yeezy Boost 350 V1, Yeezy Boost 350 V2, the Yeezy Foam Runner, and the Yeezy Boost 700. I'm sure there's a legitimate argument to be made that I could have added more sneakers to this particular brand, but I'm sure there's a legitimate argument for adding more sneakers to every brand that I've included in this book, so I tried to do the best of what I had. And I'm still trying to keep continuity into account, so when I include the Pharrell NMD, I don't want to add another random Adidas sneaker. I want to try to keep it consistent with that same shoe. Hence the reason why I'm including the Chanel model as well, because it's a variant of that OG NMD model. Alright, so next up we have Balenciagas. For this we have the Speed Trainer, the Track 2, and the Triple S. Now unlike the Adidas models, which are all pretty slim, sleek, very modern, not too complex, with these Balenciaga models, they're all pretty much very chunky. Even with the Speed Trainer, most of the upper essentially being that sock type upper, the entire outsole and midsole is very chunky, and with the rest of the 3 shoes, they're all extremely chunky. I mean, look at these outsoles, that's absolutely insane. And again, only within the confines of a Hypebeast type book can I have a collaboration of very chunky, stylish designer brand models and very sleek, modern design designs from brands like Adidas and Nike. Next up, we got Gucci. So Gucci, we have the Ace Snake, the Flash Trek, the Righton, and the Rubber Slide. Within the brand itself, these 4 different sneakers actually provide a decent amount of variety, and they especially add a lot of variety when you think about it within the confines of the entire book itself. Again, it's not just me thinking, oh, that would be a nice shoe to have in the book. It's, does that shoe work within the confines of all the other sneakers and brands that are included in the book? These are just some of the decisions I have to make. Because if I'm gonna spend 2 months working on this book, I wanna make sure it's done right. Next up, we got Jordan Brand. So for this, we have the Air Jordan 1 Dior High and Low, the Doernbecher 4, the Doernbecher 8, the Off-White Jordan 1 and the Off-White Jordan 5, and then lastly we have the Travis Scott Jordan 1 and the Travis Scott Jordan 6. Now, I did my best to try to include some level of diversity within the models, but unfortunately the Jordan 1 just happens to be really popular, especially with all these different collaborations it's had over the years, and when you think about what Hypebeast like, there's a lot of Jordan 1s that fit within that list. And surely that's okay, there's no problem with that, but I didn't want to have the entire Jordan section just to essentially be a bunch of Jordan 1s. At some point that would get kind of old, and I want to give some of these other models some love as well. And like I mentioned earlier, right, pairing, we're trying to have cohesiveness here, so every spread has 2 different sneakers. I have 2 Dior's, 2 Doernbechers, 2 Off-Whites, and 2 Travis Scotts, so we have a nice blend that has at least 2 within each kind of subgroup. Next up, we got Louis Vuitton, and you already know we have to include this brand. I mean, this is like the top fashion design house in the world. For the sneakers I selected for this one, we have the Don Kanye, the Kanye Jasper, the Trainer Sneaker Boot, as well as the Trainer Sneaker Low. This brand and some of the other high fashion brands included in this book will get a lot more love in the upcoming high fashion coloring book that's probably going to drop sometime around the summer, but for now they get a little bit of love just to include them within the set. Next up, we have Off-White. Now, I didn't include that many sneakers at all for this section. I only included the Odyssey 1000 as well as the Odyssey 2000. They both have that chunky styled runner look, so I definitely felt like it worked within the confines of this book. But adding more models for this section definitely would have taken away some stronger models from other brands, which is why I only included 2 for this one. And lastly, the big gun, Nike. So let's get into this one. As I mentioned earlier, I still have 8 models left to complete in order to not only complete this section, but this entire book. And what I found interesting while working through this process is that a lot of these sneakers that I've included in this book, but especially that came from the Nike section, are sneakers that individually I would not have wanted to make by themselves. For example, in my last book, the Nike Coloring Book Volume 1, I have both the Yeezy 1 and the Yeezy 2 included in the book. However, in this upcoming Hypebeast Coloring Book, I am having 2 different Yeezy 2 variants available. One of them is going to be updating the traditional Yeezy 2 model, which is going to add a lot of those scales that you see in the upper panel. And the second one is going to be creating the iconic Red October Yeezy 2 with all those little triangles in that same panel. I have yet to get those 2 done along with a few others, and trust me, they will be done and they will be awesome. But going into the rest of the list, we have 2 different Air Foamposite 1s. We have the Paranormans as well as the Supremes. Of course, we also have the Air Mags. We have the ISPA's Overreact as well as the Road Warriors. Off-White certainly gets some love in this section. We have the Off-White Air Max 90, Off-White Air Max 97, Off-White Air Presto, and then the Off-White Vapor Max. Then we got the Sacai LD Waffle as well as the Sacai Vapor Waffle. And lastly, we got a whole lot of dunks. Now, it's possible that maybe not next year, but the year following, that I could make just a book about Nike dunks, because that shoe itself has such a long, huge history with a number of amazing collaborations, and probably it deserves its own book. But for now, this book is going to get 8 different versions. So we have the Dunk Low Supreme Cement, the Dunk Low Chunky Dunky, Dunk Low Grateful Dead, and the Dunk Low Lobster. The last 2 dunks that we have are in collaboration with Travis Scott, and the first one we have is that Cactus Jack Travis Scott with all the nice little designs on the upper, as well as the Travis Scott and PlayStation collaboration. I don't know if I like how that rhymes. I don't know. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the final list that I have for the upcoming Hypebeast Coloring Book. Each book that I make requires of about 2 months worth of work, and this book by far is the most difficult and challenging book out of the 3 that I've made. And I don't mean to be biased, but I believe this is going to be by far my best book that I've done. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this year has absolutely sucked, but I cannot wait to see what 2021 has in store for us. Now, I know I can't speak for everyone, but I can definitely speak for myself when I say that 2020 has properly prepared me for everything I need to do to make 2021 a complete success. And I wish I could just, formulate the perfect sentence that would articulate how thankful I am for each and every single one of you that are even watching to this point in the video, but really there's nothing I can come up with. So the only way I think I can really continue to show my thanks is to continue to make for you guys. Being a business owner for the first time coming into the new year, I've never had to make a business plan because, well, I mean, I wasn't a business owner before, so I had absolutely no reason to do so. And part of what I included in the business plan is our vision, right? This is KicksArt's company vision, because every job that you've worked at, they all have some vision that you read once that you never think about ever again. But I've made a very clear vision that I think will help really contextualize where I'm aiming to go in the future with KicksArt. So here is the company vision for KicksArt, and that is, in the next 5 years, KicksArt aims to be in every art classroom in the country. Now that may seem like a lofty goal, but at one point so did being a full-time artist. And, well, here we are. I wish nothing but the best for you all in this upcoming new year. Please wash your hands, take care of each other, be nice to others, and have a wonderful day. I will see you in the next video. Peace!